For 6 years, I cooked, cleaned, and raised my husband's daughter like a servant. They dismissed my dreams. They dismissed me. But last week, when their lives crumbled, I became the landlord they had to answer to. My name is Hannah Blake. I'm 34 years old, and for 6 long years, I believed that love meant sacrifice. When I married Derek Blake, I thought I was stepping into a partnership, a marriage where two people would share responsibilities, lift each other up, and build a life together. That was the promise he made. That was the lie I believed. Derek was a respected architect, confident, charming, and persuasive in all the right ways. He had a 5-year-old daughter, Maya, from his previous marriage to Lori. Lori was the kind of woman who seemed to have it all together: career, looks, and a sharp tongue she wasn't afraid to use. She made it clear from the start that I was just a replacement. But I loved Derek, and I adored Maya. I saw a family where others might see complications. At the time, I worked as an assistant manager for a well-known hotel chain. I had ambitions, not just for a career, but for financial security. I'd worked my way up from front desk staff to management over 7 years. My grandmother, before she passed, used to tell me, "Hannah, always have something of your own. No matter how much you love someone, never give up your independence." I should have listened more closely. After the wedding, Derek and I agreed I would take a short break from work, just a year or two, long enough to help Maya adjust to the changes in her young life. Derek assured me it wouldn't be permanent. He said, "We'll be partners. Once things settle down, you can go back to work or even start your own business. I want that for you." It sounded perfect. It sounded fair. So I resigned. I put my career on hold. And for a little while, everything felt right. Maya warmed up to me quickly. She was sweet, curious, and had a smile that could melt anyone's heart. I threw myself into building our home life, cooking healthy meals, organizing family outings, helping with homework. I became not just a stepmother, but a steady, loving presence in Maya's life. But slowly, things changed. Derek stopped talking about when I'd return to work. Lori's comments grew sharper. "It must be nice not to have to work," she'd say with a smirk when dropping Maya off. "But then again, not everyone's career material." At first, I ignored it. I told myself she was just bitter. But Derek? He began to echo some of her words. When I mentioned applying for part-time management positions, he'd dismiss the idea. "We don't need the extra income," he'd say. "Besides, Maya's still young. She needs stability." Stability became the chain that bound me. Every time I tried to assert my independence, there was a reason not to. Maya's school schedule, Derek's demanding work hours, family obligations, and beneath it all, a subtle guilt. If you loved Maya, you'd be here for her. That line became the silent refrain of my life. I sacrificed. I adapted. I told myself it was temporary, a phase, but years began to blur together. 2, 3, 4. I became the family's invisible backbone, the one who made sure everything functioned smoothly while receiving little acknowledgement in return. Lori continued to undermine me at every opportunity. She told Maya things like, "Real moms work hard. Hannah just stays home because she can't handle a real job." Maya, once sweet and adoring, started parroting those words. She began treating me less like a parent and more like hired help. "Where's my lunch? Did you wash my uniform?" Derek brushed it off. "She's just going through a phase." I wanted to believe him, but deep down I felt the ground shifting beneath me. My silence became mistaken for weakness. Around year 4, something in me changed. I remembered my grandmother's advice. I couldn't keep waiting for respect that would never come. Secretly, I began researching property investment. I used a modest inheritance left by my grandmother to purchase 2 small rental homes, under my maiden name, quietly, cautiously. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about money. It was about security, about having something that was mine, just in case. I didn't plan to leave, not then, but I needed to know that if the time came, I wouldn't be trapped. Derek never asked where the small inheritance went. He never thought to. After all, in his mind, I was just the stay-at-home wife. Why would I have business interests? I kept cooking, cleaning, parenting. I played the role they expected, but inside, a quiet fire began to burn. They thought I was dependent, disposable. They thought wrong. In the early days, everything felt like a dream. Derek was attentive, loving, and always full of promises. We planned family vacations. We cooked together. He would say things like, "I'm so proud of you, Hannah. Maya is lucky to have you." At school events, other parents would compliment how quickly Maya had adjusted and what a beautiful blended family we were. It felt like we had built something solid, something real. Even Lori, despite her sharp comments, seemed to back off for a while. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the balance began to shift. It started with small things. Derek coming home later from work, skipping family dinners, brushing off conversations about my returning to work with a casual, "Let's not stress about that now." I told myself he was busy, that architecture projects were demanding, that once things settled, he'd keep his word. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. Then, in Maya's second year of school, a part-time assistant manager position opened up at a boutique hotel nearby. It was perfect. Flexible hours, close to home. I brought it up to Derek over dinner. He barely looked up from his phone. "That's great, honey, but Maya's been having nightmares lately. I think she needs you around more." I paused. "But I'd be home before bedtime, and you'd still be here in the evenings." He set his phone down and gave me that patient, patronizing smile I was starting to hate. "It's not just about hours, Hannah. Kids need stability. Remember what we agreed? Just a little longer." That little longer stretched into another year. I applied for another position secretly. Got an interview. The day before, Maya came down with a stomach bug. Derek insisted I cancel. What kind of mother prioritizes work over a sick child? That night, as I held Maya's feverish hand, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was selfish to want more. But deep inside, a voice whispered, "No, it's not selfish. It's survival." Still, I let the opportunity pass. Lori's jabs grew bolder. "Hannah, you have so much free time. Could you help organize the school fundraiser?" Or, "Since you're not working, maybe you can pick up Maya and her friends every day." I tried to keep the peace. For Maya's sake, for the family. The years blurred. I stopped bringing up jobs, stopped talking about career dreams. Derek's compliments faded. Instead, he began to nitpick. "The laundry's piling up." "Why isn't dinner ready?" "Maya's grades are slipping. You should focus more on her." I became the maid, the cook, the chauffeur, and the emotional punching bag. But I smiled. I endured. Because every time I looked at Maya, I remembered why I stayed. She was my daughter in every way that mattered, even if the world refused to see it. By year 4, Maya's attitude changed. She started mimicking the adults. "Where's my breakfast, Hannah?" "You forgot to wash my soccer socks." At first, I thought it was normal teenage rebellion. But one afternoon, after she slammed her bedroom door, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. "My real mom works hard. Hannah just cleans and nags all day." My heart sank. That night, I tried to talk to Derek. "We need to address how Maya's speaking to me. She's starting to see me as staff." Derek shrugged. "She's just a kid. Don't make a big deal out of it." "But she's copying what she hears from Lori," I pressed. "It's disrespectful." He sighed heavily like I was exhausting him. "Hannah, stop overreacting. Maya's adjusting fine. Just give her some space." Space. I had given everyone space. Space to disrespect me. Space to dismiss me. Space to erase the woman I used to be. And still, I endured. I cooked. I cleaned. I cheered at Maya's soccer games. I kept the house running like clockwork. I sacrificed, believing that one day they'd see, one day they'd understand. But as the saying goes, silence is mistaken for consent. And weakness. Around that time, my grandmother's words echoed louder than ever. "Always have something of your own." I had used part of her inheritance to buy 2 small rental properties under my maiden name. At first, it was just a safety net, a whisper of security. But over time, managing those properties gave me purpose. a reminder that I wasn't just what this family made me out to be. I was capable, resourceful, and I had value beyond laundry and cooking. I learned about property management, tenant laws, investment strategies. Quietly, while they thought I was baking cookies or folding laundry, I was building my own future. Derek never noticed. Lori certainly didn't. To them, I was invisible, predictable, safe, until the economy took a turn. Derek's firm lost several major contracts. His once thriving business teetered on the edge of collapse. Lori's company downsized, and she was among the first to be laid off. Suddenly, the people who had looked down on me were drowning. One evening, Derek came home, his face pale. "The bank's moving forward with foreclosure," he said quietly. "We have 3 months." I swallowed. "What about your partners? Investors?" "They've pulled out. The debts are under my name." "What about Lori?" He shook his head. "She's broke too." Days later, Lori showed up at our doorstep looking less polished than I'd ever seen her. "Hannah," she began, trying for civility. "I know things have been tense, but we need to talk." I listened silently as she spun a tale of desperation, how the house held memories for Maya, how losing it would devastate her, how despite everything, she believed we all wanted what was best for Maya. Then came the ask. "Would you consider selling one of your investment properties to help save the house for Maya's future?" She looked at me like she expected compliance, as if my answer could only be yes. I took a deep breath. Years of disrespect, belittlement, and silent sacrifice pressed on my chest. "No," I said calmly. Lori's eyes widened. "What do you mean, no?" Derek stepped forward, his tone urgent. "Hannah, please. This is for Maya. You love her. We know you do." "I do," I agreed. "Which is why I'm offering a different solution." I paused, letting the weight of my next words settle. "I'll buy the house. Outright." Silence. Complete, stunned silence. Lori's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Derek's face went red, then pale. That's not necessary," he stammered. "We just need temporary help." "This isn't temporary," I replied. "You're both financially unstable. The bank won't wait. Maya deserves security." Lori found her voice. "You can't just take our home." I met her glare with steady eyes. "I'm not taking anything. I'm offering a solution. I'll purchase the property. Maya can stay. She'll have a stable home. You and Derek can rent if you choose. Or move." Derek shook his head, disbelief etched across his features. "You're punishing us." "No," I said softly. "I'm protecting myself. And Maya." Lori's voice cracked. "This is about control." "No, this is about boundaries." For the first time in years, I wasn't pleading. I wasn't compromising. I was stating terms. Terms they had no choice but to accept. Maya stood in the doorway, clutching her backpack. She had overheard everything. Her eyes, wide and wet, met mine. "Mom," she whispered, "not Hannah, not the dismissive her, but Mom. I want to stay with you." And in that moment, every sacrifice, every silent tear, every dismissed dream crystallized into purpose. They thought I was just the maid, the help, but they were wrong, very wrong. That night, after another exhausting day of cooking, cleaning, and absorbing their casual cruelty, I sat alone in the small guest room they'd relegated me to, the one without proper heating. Maya's sharp words still echoed in my mind. "Maybe if you worked harder, we wouldn't be broke." She was only 10, but she had already learned to belittle me, just like her father and grandmother. I stared at my cracked phone screen. On it was a paused ad for a small real estate listing website. I had been secretly researching apartments for months, imagining a quiet place just for myself and Maya. But every time I found a potential rental, Derek would mock me or Lori would tell me I was selfish for even considering leaving. Tonight felt different. Something inside me had shifted. Earlier that evening, Lori had announced, "The bank's giving us until the end of the month. After that, we're probably out, unless you can figure out how to contribute, Hannah." Her implication was clear. I wasn't part of the family's solutions, only their labor force. But that wasn't the worst part. Maya had laughed. Guess we'll be homeless because Mom can't even do that right. My own daughter, twisting the knife. I had raised her alone for years before Derek and Lori swooped in, offering help, only to slowly erode my independence. I had tried to keep the peace, to protect Maya from the instability of single parenthood, but now, the cost was too high. I opened my secret savings app, the one Derek didn't know existed. My balance blinked back at me. Years of small deposits. Money I had squirreled away from freelance bookkeeping jobs I took in secret, birthday gifts I never spent, and tax refunds I hid. It wasn't enough for a new home, but maybe it could be the start of something bigger. I typed in the address Lori had given me earlier, their home, or what was left of it. The bank had finally listed it for foreclosure. The price? Lower than I expected. It hit me like a surge of cold air. For 6 years, they had treated me like a maid. For 6 years, I had cleaned up their messes, dried their tears, patched their mistakes. They took everything from me, my dignity, my voice, even my daughter's respect. But they had underestimated one thing. I still had control over my future. I called the bank the next morning, quietly, without telling anyone. Yes, I said to the broker after a long pause, my heart racing. I'd like to discuss purchasing the property on Elmwood Drive. There was no turning back now. That day, when Derek asked me to cook dinner, I simply nodded. When Lori demanded I scrub the bathroom tiles, I smiled faintly. When Maya rolled her eyes and muttered that I was useless, I said nothing. I wasn't going to fight them anymore, not with words. My revenge would be silent, precise, and undeniable. The following evening, I called for a family meeting. Lori arrived looking guarded, her expensive purse clutched tightly against her side. Derek sat stiffly on the couch, avoiding my gaze. Maya lingered in the hallway, her backpack still slung over her shoulder from school. I took a deep breath. This was it. No turning back. Thank you both for coming, I began. My voice was steady, calm, measured. Lori huffed. We didn't have much of a choice, did we? Derek muttered something I didn't catch, eyes fixed on the floor. I've spoken with my attorney, I continued, and I'm prepared to move forward with the purchase of the house. Lori scoffed, shaking her head. You can't be serious. I am. Derek finally looked up, his face a mixture of disbelief and anger. Hannah, this is insane. This house is our family home. It was, I corrected gently, but unless someone intervenes, the bank will seize it. I'm offering a solution that benefits everyone, especially Maya. Lori crossed her arms. It's about power for you, isn't it? Finally getting to lord something over us. I smiled sadly. It's about security, stability. Maya deserves to stay in her home. You both can stay as well, under a rental agreement. Derek stood abruptly, pacing the room. This is humiliating. His voice cracked. You expect me to pay rent in my own house? To my wife? Ex-wife, I corrected softly. And yes, because that's the reality now. Lori's face twisted in fury. This is punishment. Admit it. No, I said firmly. This is boundaries. For a moment, there was silence. Only the ticking of the wall clock filled the room. Then Derek's face darkened. We'll fight this, legally. You can't just take our home. I nodded. You're welcome to pursue any legal avenue you wish. But I've already spoken with the bank. They prefer an outright sale to avoid foreclosure proceedings. The documents are ready. Lori's bravado crumbled. You went behind our backs? No, I stepped in when you both refused to face reality. Derek's fists clenched at his sides. You've wanted this all along, haven't you? Control. Revenge. I wanted respect, I replied. I wanted partnership, but when it became clear that wasn't possible, I did what any responsible adult would do. I prepared. Lori's voice shook. You've manipulated Maya against us. I haven't said a word to Maya about this. She's old enough to see things for herself. As if summoned, Maya stepped fully into the room. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her posture was steady. "Mom's right," she said softly. Lori's mouth fell open. "Sweetheart, you don't understand." "I do," Maya interrupted. "I hear the things you say when you think I'm not listening. I know how you treat Mom." She looked at Derek, then back at Lori. "You both treated her like she was nothing. But she was the one who took care of me. She was the one who showed up. Every time." Derek's face crumpled. "Maya, honey, we never meant—" "Yes, you did," Maya whispered. "And now you're mad because Mom's finally standing up for herself." Lori's mask cracked completely. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "But we're your family." "Mom's my family too," Maya said firmly. "And I want to stay with her." Derek sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I've lost everything," he murmured. "My career, my home, and now, my daughter." His voice broke on the last word. Lori turned to me, desperation in her eyes. "Please, don't do this. Don't take her away." "I'm not taking Maya anywhere," I said gently. "She's choosing to stay. You're welcome to visit, but the days of controlling and belittling me are over." Derek looked up, eyes bloodshot. "And what about us? What about all the years we spent together?" "I cherished those years," I admitted, "but I can't ignore the truth anymore. I gave everything to this family, and when I needed support, I was met with silence and contempt." Lori's shoulders slumped. "I never thought it would come to this." "Neither did I." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. "But choices have consequences, and now it's time to move forward." Maya walked over and took my hand. Her small fingers curled tightly around mine. "I want to stay with you, Mom." I squeezed her hand gently, my heart swelling with a mixture of sorrow and fierce determination. Derek's voice was barely audible. "So, what happens now?" "I'll finalize the purchase with the bank. You can choose to stay as tenants or find alternative housing. Maya's residence here will be guaranteed in the lease agreement." Lori looked defeated, broken. "And if we can't afford the rent? Then you'll need to move," I said softly. "I won't throw you out overnight, but I also won't subsidize disrespect anymore." Derek covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. Whether it was from anger or grief, I couldn't tell. Lori sank into a chair, staring blankly at the floor. The room was heavy with the weight of reality crashing down around them. For years, they had believed I was powerless, that I would endure anything for the sake of keeping the family together. They never imagined I'd find the strength to reclaim my life, to reclaim my dignity. Maya leaned her head against my side. "I'm proud of you, Mom." Tears pricked my eyes, but I held them back. "Thank you, sweetheart." Derek finally looked up, eyes hollow. "I never meant to make you feel like this." "Intentions don't erase actions," I replied. "But I hope someday you'll learn from this." Lori nodded numbly. "We'll sign whatever papers you need." "Tomorrow," I agreed. "We'll meet at the attorney's office." The meeting ended not with a bang, but with a quiet, heavy resignation. They had no fight left, no manipulations, no leverage. I had reclaimed my power, not through vengeance, but through preparedness and resilience. That night, as I tucked Maya into bed, she whispered, "I was scared you'd leave like everyone else." I kissed her forehead. "Never. We're in this together." As I closed her bedroom door, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was thriving, and the people who had underestimated me were finally seeing me for who I truly was. Not a maid, not a doormat. A mother, a protector, and now, the landlord. My journey wasn't over, but the chapter where I was silenced, dismissed, and devalued, that chapter had ended, on my terms. 2 days later, we met at my attorney's office. Derek and Lori arrived separately, both looking like shadows of the confident people they once were. Derek's suit was wrinkled, his tie askew. Lori wore sunglasses, though we were indoors. I knew it wasn't just to shield her from the fluorescent lights. It was to hide the bags under her eyes, the evidence of sleepless nights and stress. My attorney, Ms. Carter, greeted us with professional warmth. "Shall we begin?" Derek nodded stiffly. Lori said nothing. We sat at the long oak table. The contract was ready. I had made sure it was fair but firm. The purchase agreement transferred the title of the house to me. A separate rental agreement allowed Derek and Lori to remain as tenants for 6 months with a set rent. Market rate, but not exorbitant. Maya's residence was guaranteed. No one could force her to leave without my consent. Ms. Carter slid the documents across the table. "If everyone could sign where indicated." Derek hesitated, pen hovering above the paper. "This feels wrong." "What feels wrong," I said calmly, "is allowing pride to destroy what stability remains for Maya." Lori's hand trembled as she signed first. Derek followed. His signature was shaky but legible. When it was done, Ms. Carter collected the papers. "Congratulations. The transfer is official." Lori's shoulders slumped. Derek stared at the table as if it might open up and swallow him whole. We stood. There was nothing more to say, or so I thought. As we reached the door, Lori turned to me. Her voice was brittle. "I suppose you think you've won." I met her gaze steadily. "This isn't about winning. It's about doing what none of us managed before, securing Maya's future." She didn't respond. Instead, she pushed past me and left the office. Derek lingered a moment longer. "I never thought it would come to this," he murmured. "Neither did I replied. "But here we are." He nodded, resigned, and followed Lori out. The next morning, the neighborhood buzzed with curiosity. The for sale sign had disappeared overnight. In its place was a simple plaque that read, "Blake Residence." Now under management by HB Properties. The initials were a quiet nod to my grandmother. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Whitaker, paused while walking her dog. "So the rumors are true, dear?" I smiled. "Which ones?" "That you're the new owner. That you saved the house." "I suppose you could say that." She beamed. "Good for you. About time someone around here took charge." Mr. Alvarez, who lived 2 houses down, waved as he loaded tools into his truck. "Congrats, Hannah. Heard you're the boss now." The word boss sent a ripple of warmth through me. Not because of power, but because of what it represented. Control over my own life. As the days passed, subtle shifts occurred. Lori, once the queen bee of the neighborhood social circle, found herself excluded from gatherings. The same women who had gossiped at her side now crossed the street to chat with me instead. "If you ever need recommendations for reliable contractors," one offered, "just let us know. You've always been so dependable." Even Derek noticed. One evening, he knocked hesitantly on the kitchen door, the door he used to stride through without a thought. "The sink's leaking upstairs. I can call a plumber if you prefer." I nodded. "That would be fine. Just remember to keep receipts. Repairs are the tenant's responsibility unless it's structural." He blinked as if realizing anew that the dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Of course." Maya adjusted more quickly than either of her parents. Her attitude softened. The sharp, entitled tone she'd adopted disappeared. She began helping with chores without being asked, setting the table, folding laundry, even cooking simple meals together with me. One evening, as we washed dishes side by side, she said quietly, "I'm sorry for how I treated you before." I paused, dish in hand. "Thank you for saying that." "It wasn't just me," she continued. "Mom and Dad. They made me think less of you. I thought that's how families worked, that some people were just supposed to take care of everything and not complain." I dried my hands and turned to her. "Maya, families should be about respect and support. Everyone contributes. Everyone's feelings matter." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I get that now, and I want to be better." I hugged her tightly. "You already are." At school, Maya's teachers noticed the change too. Her grades improved. She joined the art club. At a parent-teacher conference, Mrs. Ramirez smiled warmly. "Maya's thriving. Whatever changes you've made at home, they're working." I smiled. Thank you. Lori, meanwhile, withdrew further. She avoided neighborhood gatherings, rarely spoke beyond what was necessary. Derek tried, in his own clumsy way, to maintain some semblance of dignity, but the power dynamics were clear. Everyone saw it. The woman they once overlooked now held the reins, not out of spite, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. One afternoon, Mrs. Whitaker stopped by with a plate of cookies. "You know," she said conspiratorially, "people used to pity you." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh?" She chuckled. "We thought you were the poor woman stuck taking care of someone else's mess. But now they respect you." I accepted the cookies with a smile. Thank you. As the weeks passed, even Derek seemed to accept the new reality. He maintained the property, paid rent on time, and refrained from the passive-aggressive remarks that once colored every interaction. Lori remained distant, but that was her choice. I had made mine. Maya and I established new routines. We cooked together, studied together, even started a small herb garden in the backyard. One evening, as we watered the basil and mint, Maya said, "I told my art teacher about you. She said you're like the anchor of the family." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "That's very kind." "It's true," Maya insisted. "You held everything together, even when no one noticed. And now you're steering the ship." I smiled, ruffling her hair. "I guess I am." That night, as I locked up the house and turned off the lights, I paused at the plaque outside. HB Properties, my initials, my legacy. My grandmother would have been proud. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was leading. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. The immediate aftermath had passed, but the journey was far from over. Ahead lay new challenges, new victories, and most importantly, a new life built on respect, resilience, and love. It was nearly a month after the lease was signed when Lori appeared on my doorstep again. This time, she wasn't wearing designer sunglasses or carrying an expensive handbag. She wore jeans, a plain blouse, and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "Hannah," she began, voice unusually sweet. "I was hoping we could chat." I folded my arms. "About what?" "Oh, you know, water under the bridge. We've all had time to reflect. I think we let pride get in the way of what's really important. Family." I said nothing, letting the silence force her to fill it. She continued quickly. "I thought maybe we could start fresh. I've been speaking with the PTA board and they'd love to have you join as a co-chair. You always were so organized." The forced compliment almost made me laugh. She wasn't just trying to make peace. She was trying to pull me back into the social circle she used to dominate. I kept my voice calm. "That won't be necessary. I'm focused on my business and my family." Lori's smile tightened. "But it would look so good for Maya. The other parents are talking, you know. They think it's inspiring how you've elevated your position." I raised an eyebrow. "Elevated? You mean how I saved the house you and Derek were about to lose?" A flush crept up her neck. "There's no need to be petty." "I'm not being petty. I'm being accurate." She huffed, the sweetness vanishing. "Fine, but don't think everyone's impressed. Some people think you were just waiting for us to fall." I leaned in slightly. "Let them think what they want. Their opinions don't pay my mortgage." Lori's mask cracked. "So that's it? You're just above it all now?" "No," I said softly. "I'm finally free of it all." She opened her mouth as if to argue, but thought better of it. Instead, she muttered, "You've changed." "No, Lori. I finally stopped changing for other people." She turned and walked away, shoulders stiff, defeated but still too proud to admit it outright. 2 days later, Derek called. Not a text, not an email, an actual phone call. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hannah," he said, voice low. "Can we talk?" "About?" "In person. Please." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at the local cafe where we used to have breakfast before things fell apart. He was already seated when I arrived, a coffee in front of him, untouched. "Thanks for meeting me," he said. I nodded but didn't sit. What is it, Derek? He took a deep breath. I've been thinking about everything. I made mistakes, big ones. I waited. No sympathy, no rescue. He continued, Maya's happier now. I can see that. And it hurts. Because I let things get to this point. Yes, I agreed simply. He flinched but pressed on. But, for Maya's sake, I think we should find a way to move past the resentment. Co-parent. Maybe even forgive each other. I almost laughed. The audacity. Forgive? He nodded. Yes, for Maya. She needs stability. And we were good once, weren't we? Maybe not perfect, but good. I leaned against the back of the chair but didn't sit. We were never equals, Derek. You mistook my sacrifices for compliance. You let Lori belittle me. You let Maya mimic that behavior, and when I tried to regain some independence, you manipulated me with guilt. His face paled. That's not fair. No, I snapped. What's not fair is that it took financial ruin for you to see my worth. He tried again, softer this time. We could make this work, for Maya. For Maya, I repeated, my tone icy. Is that really who you're thinking about? Or are you just afraid of losing the last shred of control you have? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I continued, voice steady, sharp as glass. You had years to work with me, to treat me like a partner. Instead, you treated me like staff, and now that the power dynamic has shifted, you want to rewrite history. He looked down at the table, ashamed, or at least pretending to be. I know I can't change the past. No, I agreed. But you also can't manipulate the future. I straightened. This isn't a negotiation, Derek. There's no starting fresh. The terms are clear. You're tenants. Maya lives with me. We co-parent according to the legal agreement, and we remain separate in every other aspect. His shoulders sagged. So that's it? That's the boundary. Respect it. He gave a bitter laugh. You're colder than I remember. No, I said quietly. I'm stronger than you remember. I turned to leave, but paused. One more thing, Derek. Stop using Maya as leverage. She's not a pawn. She's a person. And she's watching. Learning. Every move you make. As I walked out, I felt eyes on me. Other patrons had overheard. A few nodded subtly. One woman, about my age, even gave me a small thumbs up. It wasn't just about me anymore. I was standing up for every woman who had been underestimated, silenced, or manipulated. That evening at home, Maya noticed my mood. Was it Dad? She asked softly. I nodded. He tried to suggest we forget the past, for your sake. She frowned. But that's not fair to you. I smiled. No, it's not, and I told him so. Maya hugged me tightly. I'm glad you're not letting him trick you. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. A few days later, Lori made one last attempt. She caught me outside, near the mailbox. I heard about your new real estate venture, she began, trying to sound casual. It's impressive. Thank you, I replied. Actually, she continued, I've been thinking about getting into property management myself. Maybe we could collaborate. The desperation behind her smile was almost pitiful. She wasn't just trying to mend fences. She was looking for a way back into relevance, back into power. I shook my head slowly. No, Lori, we're not business partners. We're not friends. You're my tenant. That's the only relationship we'll have. Her face fell. You really mean that? I really do. She opened her mouth again, but I held up a hand. And before you suggest it's for Maya's sake, I already provide for her. That excuse won't work anymore. Lori swallowed hard. For once, she had no clever retort, no thinly veiled insult, just quiet defeat. As she walked back to her car, Mrs. Whitaker approached from her yard. Holding firm, I see, she said with a grin. Some people can't stand when the tables turn. I chuckled. No, they can't. That night, as I reviewed paperwork for a new property deal, Maya brought me a cup of tea. I'm proud of you, Mom. I smiled. I'm proud of us. She hesitated. And I want to help. Maybe not with business stuff yet, but I can take care of the garden or help with tenants. My heart swelled. That would mean a lot. As she hugged me, I realized something. I hadn't just regained my power. I had built a new legacy, one of resilience, of dignity, and of respect earned, not demanded. The days of being a maid in my own life were over, permanently. By the end of that summer, the transformation was undeniable. Not just in my home, not just in my family, but in me, where once I tiptoed around conversations, now I set terms. Where once I begged for respect, now it was given, willingly or not. My small property management company, HB Properties, began to grow. Word spread that I treated tenants fairly but firmly, that my properties were well maintained, that I wasn't just a landlord, I was a professional. One day at a community event, Mrs. Whitaker approached me again. "Hannah," she said with a knowing smile, "the neighborhood committee would like your input on the upcoming development proposals." I blinked, surprised. "Why me?" She laughed. "Because when things fell apart, you didn't. You stepped up, and frankly, we could use someone who gets things done." It wasn't about power. It wasn't about revenge. It was about building something real, something lasting. Maya noticed too. Her grades stayed high. She flourished in the art club, even winning a small scholarship for a design contest. At dinner one night, she said shyly, "Mrs. Ramirez, the art teacher, asked if you'd be willing to talk to some of the moms at school about, you know, starting over." "Starting over?" I repeated. Maya nodded eagerly. "There are other moms going through hard times, divorces, job losses. Some feel like they can't make it, like they're stuck. I told Mrs. Ramirez you could help." I felt my throat tighten. "You did?" She smiled. "Because you helped me. I thought maybe you could help them too." That night, I stayed up late drafting ideas. A free monthly meetup, workshops on financial literacy, property management, and small business startups. Not charity, empowerment. I called it Second Chapter Sisters. The first meeting had 5 women. The second had 12. By the fourth, we had to rent space at the community center. Some were single moms. Some were women re-entering the workforce after years at home. All had one thing in common. They'd been underestimated, just like I had. At one meeting, as we shared stories, one woman said, "When I got divorced, my ex told me I'd come crawling back in 6 months, that no one would want a washed-up housewife." The group laughed, not at her, but at the absurdity. "Funny," I replied. "My ex said something similar. Spoiler alert, we didn't crawl. We climbed." The applause was spontaneous, joyful. One afternoon, as Maya and I prepared for the next session, Derek showed up. He stood awkwardly by the front steps. Not angry, not manipulative, just uncertain. "I heard about your group," he said. "Maya mentioned it." I nodded. "It's been rewarding." He shifted his weight. "I wanted to say, I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. For everything." I studied him carefully. There was sincerity there, regret, but it didn't sway me. "Thank you," I said softly. "But apologies don't change the past. They only mean something if you change the future." He nodded, accepting. "I'll keep trying." "And no more using Maya to get to me," I added. "Understood." As he walked away, Maya appeared at my side. "That was weird." I chuckled. Growth always is. By fall, Lori had moved out. She couldn't afford the rent and didn't ask for a discount. She knew better. She left quietly, without drama. The once proud socialite reduced to a lesson in humility. Some might have felt pity. I didn't. One evening, at a Second Chapter Sister session, Mrs. Whitaker joined us as a guest speaker. She shared her own story, widowed young, forced to navigate finances alone. "It's not about how you fall," she concluded, "but how you rise." As the women applauded, I caught Maya beaming at me. Afterward, as we cleaned up, Maya said, "I want to join when I'm older." "You already have," I teased. No, I mean, officially. I want to help other kids who feel powerless, like I used to. Pride swelled in my chest. Then we'll build it together. That night, as I locked up the community center, I paused under the porch light. The air was cool, crisp with the promise of autumn. I thought about the girl I had been 6 years ago. Hopeful, naive, willing to bend over backwards for love and family. She wasn't weak. She was learning. Now, she had become the woman standing here, confident, capable, unafraid. I walked home, Maya's hand in mine. As we reached our door, the door I owned, the roof I secured, I smiled. Once, they treated me like a maid. Now, I was the boss of my home, my business, my future. And no one, no husband, no in-law, no self-righteous neighbor, would ever take that from me again.